Hello everybody, Dakian here with another product review for you, or at least a new look at a new product. Now, I've previously shown you these basing stamps from Happy Seppuku, and they have come out with a new product called Ready Base Molds, which are these little things, these rubber, well, silicone molds to help you make your bases. Now, specifically, they're intended for use with bases of this type, the kind of lipped bases, where if you've done it the usual way, which is to fill in this hole, well, inside the lip base, and with your putty, and then you press it down onto the stamp, you get a lot of spillage, you get an overhang over the lip, and it's difficult to clean up. So this is a way to get a perfect insert that you place into a base like this. And the way it works is this. You take your mold, you take a ball of putty, and you sort of place it into the mold like this, and I'm going to wet it down with some water to make sure it doesn't stick to the stamp. And this is important, you don't use it this way because this is soft. This is much softer than the stamp, which is a harder resin. So what you do is you place the mold on the table, and then you take the stamp, place it over, and you press down. And hopefully it peels right off. Yeah, comes off pretty well. And it looks a bit smudged, but this is because of the water. And now, you can leave it in here, you can leave it to harden in this mold without any issue whatsoever. And I'll show you in a moment what that looks like when it's cured. And I should point out that you don't need to use just Happy Seppuku's own basing stamps. If you have basing stamps from some other company, for example, somebody commented on my previous video, what about those the Basius stamps from Wargames Bakery? I actually have a ton of the Basius 2 stamps. I haven't done a review of them simply because I have so many of them. It's difficult. I don't know how I'm gonna show them all off properly, but of course any kind of thing similar to this will work with these molds. And well, let me just let it harden for a little while, and I'll come back and show you what it looks like. So an unspecified amount of time has passed, and this has cured at least to the point where it can be removed from the mold, and it doesn't stick to the mold. You just pop it out like that, and you'll see it has a very clear definition of where the edge is. And so the next step, I mean, you could just like place it like that, but that looks messy. You don't want that. I don't want that. Next step is to take the knife and start trimming. And you can very easily trim around. You see where the line is supposed to be. And once you've trimmed with a knife, you can sand down the rest. I tend to use just a simple nail file. And once you do, it looks like this. Here's one that I finished, which is even, and it will fit perfectly inside one of these. There is a bit of height to it, a bit of extra height to it here, but I don't mind. You can also use these as toppers for ordinary 25mm bases. If you have one of these, you can just glue it on top, and it is the correct width Now, personally, if I was using a base like this, I would glue this on first and then paint. If I'm using a lip base, I would paint it first and then glue it in, because that way I wouldn't spill over on the black edge, and I could just keep that black. I could, yeah, doesn't need any paint. I paint it anyway just because I'm a bit perfectionist that way, but still. Now, why is this gray, you might wonder? Is this not green stuff? No, it's not. This is a similar epoxy putty. It's called Procreate. And I've been trying it out lately, and I kind of prefer it. For these purposes, I much prefer it to green stuff, actually, because let me show you why. Here's two examples of the same stamp in green stuff. And first off, the green stuff is lumpy and uneven, and also it doesn't hold detail as well. Hopefully that comes across on camera. So yeah, I'm phasing green stuff out for making these kinds of stamps, basing stamps. That doesn't mean that I think that Procreate is the end-all be-all of all putties. I mean, I'm willing to try even more stuff. I've ordered some Milliput, their finest grade of putty, to try out, and we'll test that and see how it goes. And I'm also interested in maybe in the future trying out one of those bakeable sculpting clays. Because one of the advantages of this as advertised is that you can bake them. You can put this in the oven. However, do not put green stuff or any other two-part epoxy in the oven and bake it. That's a bad idea. Just trust me on this one. However, there are some putties like Sculpey and Bees Putty and so forth that you have to bake, that are they don't cure in room temperature because they're not dual component, they're a single component. And previously it was kind of difficult to use those for any type of modification work on a miniature, and certainly for a base, because if you put that sort of putty inside one of these plastic bases and then put that in the oven, the plastic would melt. But with these molds, you could conceivably make stamp out of, for example, Bees Putty, and then bake it. Interesting. I'm not sure how well it would hold the detail, but it's an experiment. It's an experiment I could make. Yeah. Oh, and I remembered suddenly why I wanted to make that experiment. It's because I'm thinking that might be harder. Harder as in producing a harder result. Because the thing is, when you use this stuff, it doesn't harden completely. It's kind of bendy, and it'll go back to its original shape. But and the Procreate too. The Procreate is slightly harder than the green stuff, and I suppose you can mix it to be even harder. This is mixed from a black and a white stick of mass, and if you include more of the white, it's supposed to cure harder. But really, for the base, it doesn't really matter if this is slightly rubbery. You can paint on top of it and drill into it and stick stuff onto it and glue and everything. It's no problem. So, what's my conclusion? I like these. These things are useful. I'm going to keep on using them and experimenting with them and trying them out in various ways. So if you use basing stamps of any sort, and especially if you use lip basis, I recommend giving these a look. That'll be all for for this video. So, until next time, Takian is signing off.